Welcome everyone. I thought I'd make a quick video on combat advantage in PvP. A long time ago, I learned that a surprising number of new players don't know how to gain combat advantage via positioning, or didn't know about the visual markers for it. In case anyone nowadays is still unaware of this, here is how to gain combat advantage via positioning. Now I've got to go show you this with some actual mobs, so that'll take a moment. When you look at the ground surrounding enemies, you'll often see blue and white semicircles or full circles appear. When there is a blue semicircle at an enemy's feet, it means you currently have combat advantage against that enemy. If you see a white semicircle, that is showing you where you need to be standing in order to gain combat advantage. If you see a blue circle all the way around an enemy's feet, that means you have combat advantage against that enemy no matter where you are standing. In order to gain combat advantage from positioning, you need to be flanking the enemy with at least one ally. Flanking is when you and an ally stand on opposite sides of an enemy. Attacking companions count as allies, as you can see. But in PvP matches, you'll need to use your teammates if you want combat advantage from positioning. When you have combat advantage against an enemy, you deal extra damage to that enemy. Aside from positioning, there are other ways to gain combat advantage from things like class powers and mount combat powers. Smoke bomb used from stealth is one such example. The daze from dazing strike also grants combat advantage. Rogue and Warlock also have several yellow class features that apply combat advantage, such as this one here. Deep Crow Shriek also grants combat advantage, which is this mount power here. There are many other things that can grant it. Most things that grant it tell you in the tooltip. Now, don't confuse simply having combat advantage active with the combat advantage stat. Those two things work off of each other, but are two separate things. The combat advantage stat increases the damage you deal when you have combat advantage active. As something important to mention about the combat advantage stat, PvP players across all classes don't need to stack this stat on purpose in Mod 20, Mod 21, or Mod 22. The other stats are a higher priority. In past mods, such as Mod 19, Rogue in particular used to stack really high combat advantage, especially the Whisper Knife Paragon. Both Rogue and Warlock do have a high uptime for having combat advantage active though. Rogue is unique in that it needs to attack with combat advantage always, or it simply won't do enough damage. As some counterintuitive info, some classes such as Ranger can actually end up doing a little bit less damage to enemies when they have combat advantage active than they do when they don't have combat advantage active. This can be further exacerbated against classes with awareness 40, such as Warlock. In a PvP setting, it is generally helpful to grant your teammates combat advantage. More players get at least a small damage increase from it than not. I think that's everything, guys. See you next time.